likes of Greta Thunberg and others talk about this kind of in 12 years' time. I don't know what quite they envisage, but it's some kind of Armageddon type thing happening. This guy Günsberg clearly believes it, and he's peddling this nonsense. This girl is so worried and anxious by what she is being told by people like Günsberg, not by the experts, not by the IPCC themselves. And she's also being taught this, Andrew, by her in her climate ecological degree, which has led her to believe she mustn't even have children. So the things we learned from this episode is that don't send your children to any climate or environmental degrees, Andrew, because you are going to mentally disturb them. That's what they're saying,
well,
not me.
Whether it's from that or the ABC, she's an ABC watcher, obviously. She's got an ABC audience member there on the ABC. I mean, if she's listening to the ABC and only the ABC, I'm not surprised she's in a panic, Rowan. I'm not surprised. And what struck me was that her absurd, I have to say, absurd fear of, you know, I can't bring a child into this warming world. Neither that nor Günsberg's incredible response that if you've got paranoid delusions, that's completely ordinary and normal, given global warming, none of that was challenged by any one of the other panellists there or the host, Hamish MacDonald. I mean, I find that just mind-boggling.
It is highly irresponsible. I've been increasingly the ABC. There is no argument for keeping the ABC. It's time to sell it off, shut it down, get rid of it. We'll talk about that in a second. But the other thing here, Andrew, I'll just remind you that during the same-sex marriage debate, whatever your beliefs, thoughts, religious or non-religious, or whatever it might be to do with same-sex marriage, the one argument that did carry some merit was the idea that if you feel that you're trapped in the wrong body or whatever, this might lead to suicide. Now, whether it's true or not true is not what I'm arguing. What I'm saying is that that was a powerfully emotional argument to say that certain things might so upset people, you know, using homophobic terms or insulting kids in the playground, might be so upsetting that they will then end up causing harm to themselves. Yet, the ABC is prepared to sit there and ramp up terrifying young children to the point we're now seeing where they're getting mental disorders of their own admission.
So true.
The ABC is prepared to do that and be it on their heads, when we start seeing the results of this terrifying scare campaign and playing with kids' mental health.
We've already seen footage of children crying in the street on TV for exactly this reason. And just as a reassurance of that woman on the, in the small hope she's watching, your chances of actually dying in a climate-related accident are now 1% of what it was a century ago. Crops are growing record levels. The planet is greening, and we're getting more rain in Australia over the last 100 years. You're doing pretty well. Your child will be perfectly fine.
In fact,
by the way,
Andrew,
by the way, for anyone that might have deliberately misinterpreted what you said, when you gave a little trigger warning to loonies, you're talking about left-wing loonies?
Yes.
So just hold the manufactured outrage. Rowan, identity politics, you mentioned. It's, to me, seems to be fostering a growing apartheid, which we saw that in a High Court decision a bit yesterday, but I'll talk about that later. We discussed a couple of years ago, for instance, how even the City of Melbourne had outside its Signal Arts Studio posters telling whites they were not welcome, declaring this is a safe black space, and if your blood is of the settler, please respect our request not to enter. Now we're actually getting artists like Yolanda Bonnell, a Canadian who calls herself proud, fat, queer, and something I hadn't heard before, Two-Spirit, and Nishabi and South Asian. I don't know what Two-Spirit is, but anyway, peak identity politics. And she's now said to the media, only send reviewers of her new play, only send reviewers if they are Indigenous, black, or of some other acceptable colour, because she's taking a stand against colonialism. Fair enough?
Absolutely not fair enough, and this has to be called out for precisely what it is, which is racism. This is real racism, not the confected racism that we hear about thrown around in TV studios and so on against anyone people disagrees with. This is genuine, heartfelt, right down to the pigments of your skin, racism. It's disgusting, it's despicable. Just to clear up the, let's be really honest, this person is saying she doesn't want whites anywhere near her show. She doesn't want them to comment on her show, she doesn't want them to have anything to do with her show. Well, just anything, anything that you should, any moral issue, Andrew, the simplest way to test whether it has any validity whatsoever is to flip it round. Just turn it on its head and see the mirror image. If you had a white stage play, a white artist who had said, I don't want any black people or coloured people or whatever, gay people, or whatever it might be, doesn't matter, coming into my show or criticising my show or having anything to do with my show, that is out-and-out discrimination and should... It is what we thought we were signing up to when we signed all these anti-discrimination laws, but now we learn that it only goes one way. But you mentioned the two-spirit thing, Andrew, and this is just how absurd the left now are. I thought prior... I'd seen the two-spirit term bandied around before, and I presumed it was, you know, you were asexual and in love with another spirit or something, but I was completely wrong. Turns out the term two-spirit is another racist terminology. It means that you are basically, and again, to the left-wing watchers of the show out there, don't actually go berserk and start twittering and all the rest. It is actually a term that means a gay Indian, or a lesbian Indian, American Indian, or First Nation,
no,
so you can't say Indian and you can't say gay. But anyway, put that to one side. No, it's impossible to keep up. The actual terminology now is that it is a non-binary First Nations or something person. And such garbage. It is so insane, this intersectionality, Andrew, where people are dividing into these ever smaller groups, and that's what a two-spirit person is. There used to be, of course, another term which I won't use because it's so offensive, and it meant Indians who were gay, and it was used by the original, I guess, cowboys or settlers in America. But that's now so offensive you have to use the term two-spirits instead.
Two-spirit, okay, I've got that. Look, that was a new one for me. Rowan Dean, thank you. So, I should recall before I go, Rowan, now that I remember, I'm pretty sure that an Aboriginal playwright hired by the ABC, Nakia Liu, she also asked critics in Sydney not to review her play unless if they were white. Now, I'll double-check that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. So the thing is spreading.
There's only one reason to ask critics not to criticise your or to come to your play. It's because you're worried they're going to say it's rubbish. That's the only reason.
Yes, exactly. Rowan Dean, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
After the break, the panel and this really, really troubling High Court decision. I mean, how can our judges divide us like this by race? But to lighten things up, magnificent trolling by Donald Trump.